Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Matt and I like video games. And in today's video I'm going to be discussing why it is time to stop defending 30 FPS. So stay tuned. So the other day, I'm on Twitter and I'm having a discussion with somebody that I can only describe as a fanboy. And I think it's important to note that when I say someone is a fanboy, I mean that this person only showers praise upon their favorite console, never any criticism. And in this guy's case, the console was PlayStation. Now, I'm not here to say that PlayStation fanboys are worse than Xbox fanboys, although they definitely do outnumber Xbox fanboys. And to be quite honest, as far as I'm concerned, both of these fanboys just suck really hard. And I'm not talking about the guys and girls online who like to just poke fun at the other console and have a friendly back and forth about which one's better. I'm not talking about that stuff. I'm talking about the people online who will personally attack you because you said something bad about their console. Those are the people I'm talking about. But I've already made a video on my opinions on console wars, and in fact, if you'd like to check it out, I'll leave a link in the description. But back to what I was saying. I was having a discussion with this guy who seemed completely adamant that 30 FPS was completely fine for next-gen experiences. We were talking about Spider-Man Miles Morales being a 30 FPS game, and his entire point was that Sony developers choose to target 30 FPS. Meanwhile, I was saying that they only choose that because there is no pushback from their hardcore fans to expect anything better. I mean, do you remember when the Xbox One X was getting ready to launch and Phil Spencer was doing interviews all over the place, and the number one question that came up time and time again was, what about 60 FPS? And Phil would always have to laugh it off and say things jokingly like, man, I wish everyone would stop asking me about that. And do you know why he had to say things like that? It's because the anemic CPUs in these current gen consoles just don't have the power to push out frames like next gen will. But that didn't keep Phil Spencer and the rest of Microsoft from not just listening but actually hearing that question and realizing that 60 FPS is what people actually want. And thanks to people asking that question, thanks to people bothering Phil Spencer, thanks to people bothering the guys at Xbox, 60 FPS is going to be the biggest factor that makes next generation truly next generation for Xbox fans. And that's my one real gripe with Sony. I mean, I love Sony, but that is my one real gripe with them. It's the fact that their fans seem so content with whatever Sony throws at them. And to be fair, Sony has supplied its fans with some top tier experiences this generation. I mean, I'd be happy too if I was playing God of War, Uncharted 4, Horizon Zero Dawn, Last of Us 2. I mean, I get it. To be honest, I played all those games, but still, I get it. You guys are happy, you love those games, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I feel like this blind loyalty to accept anything that PlayStation does is just making Sony too comfortable with where they're at right now. I mean, they're completely complacent right now, and that's why we're stuck listening to PlayStation drone on about some hyper-fast SSD that's only gonna matter for first-party games that don't go to PC. I mean, I'm just struggling to think of how it could ever be perceived as negative to ask for 60 FPS. Like, we know the PS5 specs, variable clock Zen 2 CPU, and an AMD GPU running at a max 10.2 teraflops. This console's not a slouch. This console is totally capable of running 1080p 60, 1440p 60, or even some obscure resolution like 1800p 60, and even 4K 60 in less demanding titles. There is no way that anyone can tell me that Spider-Man Miles Morales is incapable of hitting a 60 FPS target on the PS5, especially when the game is already running on PS4. It is a DLC for Spider-Man PS4, and it is running on the exact same engine as Spider-Man PS4 with some minor upgrades to allow for ray tracing and puddles and whatnot, but it's running on the same base engine. I honestly don't care what you need to do to hit 60 FPS, okay, you know what? Let me calm down. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Peaceful thoughts.
Let me just say that if a developer wants to target 4K with maxed out settings and ray tracing turned on, then I think it's absolutely fine to target 30 FPS. But, and this is a huge but, I find it to be completely unacceptable to not also include a performance mode to target things like 60 FPS or 120 FPS, especially when you're working with a console as powerful as the PS5. And let me go ahead and address the trolls who are going to say, well, what about Assassin's Creed Valhalla devs saying that the game will only run at 30 FPS on Xbox Series X? Look, I'm against that too, 100%. I hate that. But there's absolutely nothing that Microsoft can do. If a third-party developer wants to target 30 FPS, then it's out of Sony or Microsoft's hands. But when you listen to Phil Spencer and everyone working on the Xbox Series X hardware, you often hear them talk about how games feel and how they perform. We've already achieved photorealism on this generation of consoles. I mean, look at games like Hellblade, God of War, Horizon Zero Dawn, Spider-Man PS4, Days Gone, Death Stranding, Control, Far Cry 5, Gears 5, Assassin's Creed Origins and Odyssey, Red Dead 2. I mean, games looked amazing this gen. But do you know what we haven't achieved on consoles is a consistent 60 FPS. And of course there are exceptions to this like Forza Motorsport, Gran Turismo, Forza Horizon 4, Gears 5, Halo 5, Halo MCC, and there's probably a ton more that I'm forgetting. I'm also not counting Battlefield or Warzone because while those games do target 60 FPS, they struggle to hit it, let alone maintain it. And this is why I feel like the next logical step for this upcoming generation of consoles is to keep the same fidelity but double the frame rate. I mean, we're already seeing Xbox talk about this. Look at Dirt 5. They're not just talking about 4K 60, but they're talking about a 120 FPS mode. Look at Gears 5. They're working to have a patch available day one that includes 4K 60 with upgraded textures over even the PC version. And on top of that, they're looking to add a 120 FPS mode to the game also. I mean, that game already looks crazy and plays like butter on the Xbox One X. Could you imagine it looking better and playing at 120 FPS? And then you hear things from people online saying something like, oh, I prefer 30 FPS because it makes my games feel cinematic. And I'll say this, there's never been a game that I've played in both 30 FPS and 60 FPS and thought, wow, this game was way better in 30 FPS. I mean, even the rebooted Tomb Raider games are better in 60 FPS, and they're practically just action movies. Take any PS4 exclusive and bump it up to 60 FPS and tell me with a straight face that it doesn't feel better and more responsive. Even Digital Foundry in their latest video discussing the Death Stranding port to PC talked about how the game not only felt better, but it also looked better as a direct result of playing it in 60 FPS versus 30 FPS. Now my whole point with this video is not to bash Sony or the PS5, but to simply tell fans to just ask for better. I feel like if you're a fan who's on the edge of their seat waiting to pre-order the PS5 or the Xbox Series X for what will almost certainly be $500, then you deserve to get your money's worth. It does our favorite games no favors when we are complacent and shallow in our wants and demands. Ask for better and you will get better. It's honestly that simple. Remember how earlier in the video I mentioned Microsoft consistently talking about how games will feel and perform next gen? That's because we kept asking and pushing for 60 FPS. Now, will there be 30 FPS games on the Xbox Series X? Absolutely there will be, but I'd be willing to bet that about 90% of them are going to be third-party games. And as for their first-party games, Xbox knows there is no reason that they can't have their games run at 60 FPS first and foremost. And here's the thing, if they don't do that and they start doing that 30 FPS stuff, you already know that I'm gonna be on here asking for better from them. I always consider myself a diehard Xbox fan, and that's never gonna change. But at the end of the day, I grew up with the PlayStation always in the house, and I consider it a pretty big part of my life also. And as someone who vividly remembers the mistakes that Xbox made going from the 360 to the Xbox One, I can tell you that I see one gigantic similarity, and that's complacency. Sony fans were spoiled this gen much the same way that the 360 fans were spoiled, and it's really starting to seem like Sony is just coasting into next generation based on this blind loyalty from its fans, and that's only going to get you so far. Just ask the original Xbox One. But as always, I want both of these consoles to succeed, and not only because both of these brands mean a lot to me, but because I want to play the best possible versions of the best possible games from both of these companies. But what do you guys think? Do you think that 60 FPS should be the new norm for next gen, or are you okay with this 30 FPS stuff? Leave a comment below and let me know what you're thinking. Leave a like if you liked the video, and maybe share it with a friend if you could. Please subscribe to the channel if you will be so kind, because my god, does it really motivate the hell out of me when I see my numbers going up the way it has been these past 2 months. I can't thank you you guys enough for that. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.